Well, good afternoon. My name is Greg Frohna, and I oversee our departments of guest services and spiritual care over at North Kansas City Hospital. And we think that it's a really great opportunity for you to come to be able to just figure out as we grow older, how do we navigate the opportunities we have in our lives. Sometimes we look at those opportunities as challenges, and sometimes those opportunities are really a positive impact in our lives. If you can think back when you were going to retire or about to retire, those plans you had made, sometimes they worked out exactly the way that you wanted them to, sometimes they didn't. And we want to talk a little bit about what happens as we grow older. And I've invited Dennis Thompson, who you'll meet in a moment. He's been at the hospital for a while. He'll tell you a little bit about himself. And the reason why I invited Dennis is because he's old. Here, Dennis, let him see you, Dennis. I don't know if you can see it quite yet. I don't know. Anyhow, but we really think that there are a lot of great opportunities that we have as we get older. A lot of times we experience loss, and we'll talk a little bit about what that loss looks like. But we also know that as we transition to different phases of our life, there's new opportunities that we have. So we want to talk a little bit about what those are. But before we get there, of course, sometimes we have to define reality of where we are right now. And so because we're both fallen under the spiritual care realm, we know that we're more than just our physical beings and our emotional beings, that there's a spiritual component to all of us. And we're not just talking about religion, and Dennis is going to explain some of that. So Dennis, why don't you talk a little bit about how spirituality impacts how we as we age, how it impacts us.
Spirituality is the way in which a person sees the world and processes that which is encountered. It actually reflects one's sense of transcendence, kind of what's out there, how am I seeing that? Consequently, all people are spiritual, but not all people are religious. This is one of the things, especially working at the hospital. I've worked at the hospital for a little over 5 years now. We're at this hospital, North Kansas City Hospital, as one of our spiritual care team. Right now I work with the palliative care team, and so we meet with numbers of people as we help them set goals and kind of look at where are we going, what are our healthcare options. I think of spirituality kind of like in a computer as an operating system. The info that we bring into our heads, we kind of categorize that and see that, through this lens of spirituality. Oftentimes when we suffer a loss or have difficulties, what we experience is spiritual distress. Spiritual distress is really a condition that affects both thinking and emotions. It's really sourced in that experience of loss or an adverse change. Some of the ways in which we might see this: hopelessness, despair, anger, sadness, guilt, some of those feelings that are associated with spiritual distress. And as a chaplain, when we visit with people, that's one of the areas that we really focus on, because this spiritual distress can really turn you on your head. Often there's, in terms of cognition or thinking, the questioning of beliefs, one's faith, one's identity, and then the withdrawal from relationships or meaningful activities. When we experience the loss, it becomes a problem. Okay, what do we do with this loss? What does it look like? How would we identify this? As Greg comes, we've kind of made up a list, and this is not an exhaustive list, but we've, in order to understand that problem of the sense of loss, what types of losses might produce this spiritual distress. One of those is loss of physical ability, mental acuity, or health. Some of the examples You don't have the energy you used to have, endurance. I used to run a mile. Now I can creep 10 feet. And the idea of thinking, my reaction time. I prior to entering chaplaincy and other vocations, I was a pilot, and people said, "Oh, don't you want to fly?" Well, I realized that my reaction time at my age is not the same as it was when I was in my 20s, and so liking a long life, I probably ought to think about the types of things I do. There's chronic issues that come up in people's lives, things that you didn't experience before. Exercise, even I was out looking at a elliptical trainer, and so that looks nice. I sat down on it and started to pedal it, and I got about 3/4 of the way around and figured out that knee isn't going to do what I need to do, so I had to get a different kind. And so that sensing that physical loss and kind of mental loss. Also, there's a loss of relationships, family, friends, friends die, colleagues retire, children, grandchildren relocate, and so there's that sense of change. A loss of independence. This is one that often in our meetings, we're well, here's your options. Inability to drive, taking the guy's keys away, say no more. Yeah, you're not safe on the road. Work that I used to do around my house, crawling up on the roof and fixing this and fixing that. Have to hire somebody to do it now because my body is not safe doing that. Even the ability to travel. We have children that live in Europe, so thinking about going there, sitting on a plane for 12 hours, that's stress on the body. If your back hurts and your knees ache, and that's could be dangerous. Loss of neighborhood. Got to sell the house, move to an assisted living or long-term care. Big decisions, big sense of loss. That was my home for so long, and now I can't have it anymore. I've got to do something else. So another loss that we find is the loss of meaning and purpose. Sometimes you'll hear people ask the question, why am I even here? Or expressing feelings of worthless. I'm just worthless. I just can't do anything. And then loss of faith, even loss of faith. People that are people with a specified faith tradition sometimes haven't integrated that into their thinking, that there are changes that are coming, and my faith is the same faith that was back there. How is it going to inform my thinking at this point in time? Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, I wonder why God's left me. And that sounds fairly crass, but those feelings that God's abandoned me, or people might say, I read the Bible and pray, but nothing changes. That sense of an indifference from God, or perceived indifference to God, and these losses, place us in that position of spiritual distress. So the question we really want to look at is, what type of response can we have to these steps?
Let me, if I could, Dennis, let me just step in and let me get in the camera so people can see me. And let me just, the reality is some of you might have dealt with some of the losses that Dennis has just explained, and all of us will get to that point at some time. And yet we don't think that people need to be stuck. And I think that's why we're here today, and why we thank you for joining online, because we want to be able to share with you some solutions. How do you live whatever rest of your life you have, not thinking about the losses, not considering what you don't have, but creating new opportunities for what you can have and what the difference you can make. And according to the topic, how do you leave a real positive mark for those who are around you? So Dennis is going to walk through really 3 strategies, if you will, on how that you can continue to endure the losses, recognize that loss occurs, but at the same time, don't let that define you. Don't let it be limiting, but it really almost have it be a launch pad for what you can do. So Dennis, you just share those 3 ideas.
I will. Sometimes people get stuck in that I'm here, then they forget, okay, I'm here now at this point in time. Where can I go with that? And like Greg said, there are 3, I call them response steps. The first one of those is to do a reality check. And that's kind of like the cold water in the face. Okay, now let's get down to what needs to be done. The first aspect of that that I've discerned is accept the situation. Now notice, accept the situation without moving to despair, because often a sense of loss is going to bring a feeling of despair, like, I can't this, so therefore, my life's over, end of story. But in accepting the situation, it's avoiding that trap of denial. Oh, like, that's not me, and then I can go out and do something foolish. And physically, I'm a craftsman, and so I like to build things. I like to do things, but every now and then I'll grab the chainsaw and go out and say, oh, that tree needs trimming up, and I chop it away, and then all of a sudden I come back in after cleaning up the mess. Oh, my back, oh, my shoulders. So why did I do that? So, but accept the situation. So when I get that urge, I can, I do generally the same things. I do it slower and more methodical, and understanding my boundaries. Also, as with loss, give yourself permission to grieve. Yes, you have lost something, and just like physical loss, death in the family, there's a grieving process that you understand what's happened. There's sorrow and kind of moving through that sense of grieving, but again, with the idea that okay, there's something out the other side, and then gain a clear understanding of your prognosis, and that's kind of a clinical term. Yeah, you need to know, like if you have a chronic issue and something's taking place in your body, and you're going to want to talk with your physician. Okay, what's going on here? What can I expect? And but you can also kind of give yourself a prognosis in other areas of your life. Okay, I'm here financially, I'm here relationally, and kind of get a clear picture of where you are. And this is that reality check that sets you up for the second step of reframing the situation. I use the term reframing because, in a sense, you have a picture. That's you. And in your present situation, you have a frame on it. So what I recommend is take that frame off, put a different frame around it. You got the same situation, but now you're going to see the picture differently. For example, focus on your remaining abilities. Often when we sense that loss, you say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, what can you do? And you do have some options. And look at that. Okay, what can I do in where I am at this point in time? The second one is kind of related to that. Focus on your resources. What do I have? And that may not be just you know, like financial resources, there's relational resources. What do I have that I can use to leverage my abilities? You know, if I can't do this, but I have this ability, you know, maybe I can get to the same goal, not same way, but I'm going to get there anyway because I've leveraged what I do have to accomplish my goal. And then turn losses into opportunities. Now, that's not psychobabble. The idea of turning losses into opportunities, give you an example of that. If one of your colleagues has retired and they're kind of out of the picture, and then you retire, and then it seems like you have two disconnected people. Well, that's not a loss, that's an opportunity. Well, we aren't seeing each other at work. How about let's let's get together. If you're distanced, use Zoom. If you work through the technology issues, there's a number of ways that you can keep connected. You know, maybe the loss of driving turns into an opportunity to explore other ways of transportation. And yes, there is a mindset there. Yes, I can't do this, I don't do that, but now I can do this, and I'd never thought of that before. The next step, the third step, is what I call re-engaging the living process. And that's kind of really getting to the idea of legacy. I said re-engage the living, or the process of living. Now, I specifically use that last term, living, because often we think of dying. Yeah, we're going to die. The process of dying will take place naturally, but the process of living is going on right now. So as you re-engage that process, those losses, you remember I said kind of people will withdraw, back away from those opportunities and those connections, and just kind of out of the picture. There's no hope. Well, re-engage the process of living. That's kind of sourced around two questions, and let me give you the first of those questions. Okay, how do you want to be remembered? And here, you know, when people would see, you know, Dennis Thompson written on a stone, a granite stone, okay, what's the pictures that's going to come into their minds at that point in time? Okay, how do you want to be remembered? Here's how you can make that impact. Strengthen personal relationships. Personal relationships change. There's some constants, you know, your marriage, children, they're there, and how can you strengthen those personal relationships? Perhaps it starts by just talking with your kids. You know, hey, you know, Dad's at this point now, and he can't, you know, whatever it was, but I'm going to be there for you. I know it's different, you know, depending on what's keeping you disconnected or tends to keep you disconnected. You know, it's going to be different, but it's not going to be bad. Also, for some people, you may have to do some repair work. You know, maybe the relationships that you have are kind of touchy. Maybe they've been damaged by something that took place in the past. You know, and this would be a time to, again, maybe one-on-one. You know, son, I know that I've, you know, whatever it is, and you know, I'm sorry. I want to ask for your forgiveness and repair those. Now, it may not get done, but you've taken the initiative to start that process. You've opened the door, and see where it goes. And then interact with community. Again, that thinking about that spiritual distress, producing that withdrawing from relationships. What do I do? Organizations, you talk with people, their friends, your faith community, and then or probably reorder your priorities. Maybe you've been putting a high priority on work. Well, now that isn't there. Okay, what's going to take its place? What are you going to put in there? The next question that we're going to kind of bring the picture around. Okay, what do you want to remain after you die? And here, this is the specific aspect of legacy. After I'm dead, what's going to be there that's going to be of value to my relatives, to my friends? Okay, first of all, preserve family history. We actually did this. My aunt and uncle were in their 90s, and we kind of did it backwards. We got an occasion to get them together and get out the family pictures and to listen to the stories, when they were little kids and where they lived, and we got a lot of pictures. We got captions. Oh, get captions on the pictures. Who was that? Oh, I forgot. And get those that family history. Pass that family history on, and then another way. In fact, this one actually came from a conversation with a person that we'd met. The person had a terminal cancer, and they really loved their family, and how am I going to be there for little Johnny, when he gets older? She sat down, wrote out letters, and dated them, and say this goes for this birthday, or make recordings, and then gave them to another family member, so that when little Johnny went to school, oh, he's got a grandpa letter. And there's a number of ways you can do it: letters or little presents or something like that. That one of your trustworthy relatives will be there to give that. So that, remember the question we're answering: what do you want to remain after you die? And then leave good memories. Remind them of the good stuff. They're going to think about the good stuff. And then the stuff that isn't so good, do what you can to make that a good memory. Yeah, it was a little rough back in this time, but now I'm at peace. I'm at peace with you. Well, those 3 steps, those are our response steps. So question and answer time. We can bring Greg back up for the expert advice. So, do you have any questions? Any thoughts? Sure.
How effective is counseling for
Okay, the question was, what about counseling for the person that the aging person? And the answer, I'll give you an attorney answer. It depends. If they're open to it and they can see purpose in it, and you can facilitate that, it's a plus. If they feel like they're being stampeded into something, remember that loss of independence. If they feel like you're, there's this role reversal, like you don't know anything and I'm going to make you do this, take your medicine, it's good for you. You probably won't get a good outcome there. So if you can see a purpose, especially if somebody gets hung up in that denial, or in that step of accepting the reality, that might be a place, for cognitive behavioral therapy. So. Right. And yeah, and the question there is, how is it going to work? There are a number of factors. Okay, the counselor, connecting with the counselor, you got to get one that they'll feel comfortable with. I think time-wise, what's the time investment? Again, that comes back to the idea of prognosis. Other questions? Go ahead.
Say that I'm going to caregiver for I have good memories. All I can say is that some of them have passed. I remember the good stuff, the way they treated me,
Mm-hmm.
and that needs to be brought up. That you need to, when somebody does something for you, be very thankful. Don't
Sure.
be a man, because those are bad memories.
Right.
I could relate to some of my friends and relatives that have, but I have the good.
And the question or the comment comes from a caregiver who evaluating, what is that good that's going to remain and how to get there and how to, and perhaps some things to avoid, like ingratitude or indifference, some of those types of things that are really obstacles to good memory building. Any other thoughts?
When we were walking in to get set up, the person who works here at the community center said, "So, oh, you're the people talking about aging." And we said, yes. Or no, she asked us what our topic was. And we said about leaving your mark as you age. And she said, well, I guess that's something we're all doing involuntarily, aren't we? We're all aging. And so we all have to reckon with this reality and whether we want to or not. And I think, well, this was just a short little kind of 35,000 foot view of what we can do as we get older and some of the ways that we can handle the issues of change and loss and some of those areas that Dennis had mentioned. I think we really put some thought to it, not just leave here after 30 minutes and think, okay, that was informative, that was nice, but what are we doing? What can we do to make sure that we live a life that is meaningful to us?